Man, I got a circle here. One of my biggest gripes with this film is what is going on, everyone, and how are you doing? I'm doing great. Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Listen, guys, we are recording this. We're pre-recording this, and we've had a couple, at least on my end, some technical difficulties. And I was joking with Amanda. It might be the entity, Amanda. They're trying to get me. I'm gonna have to join the Mission Impossible crew because the AI is just taking over. But anyway, before we get into spoilers, Amanda, that's what we're here to talk about. That is the seventh Mission Impossible film of this franchise that has been around since 1996, and it is somehow, some way. Well, I know why, because it's great quality filmmaking, but they've made it 7 films to this franchise, and we got another one coming out next year. But before we get to next year, we got this one to talk about: Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Full spoilers. We're talking direction, characters, what worked, what didn't work, thoughts for Part 8, and we'll maybe give some box office predictions because right now, blockbuster films have been kind of hit or miss, so we'll see if Mr. Tom Cruise can win the box office 2 summers in a row, Amanda. But before we get into that discussion, I am not a rogue agent. I have another agent with me tagging along to talk about this film. As you all can see, Amanda from Candid Cinema. Thank you so much for your patience, Amanda, with the technical difficulties. Hopefully this time it works. But how are you doing? What are you feeling right now? Are you happy to be a fan of this franchise? What's going on?
I love this franchise more than anything. It is my favorite action franchise. It's just so good. And I think my first time watching a Mission Impossible film was MI2. And I know how everyone feels about MI2. But I used to watch it on VHS. I recorded it, watched it. You know what I mean? So I have that nostalgia, just the nostalgia for MI2, and I love everything about it. And they keep getting better and better. And I know both of us, we marathoned it going into, Dead Reckoning Part 1. And that was just so rewarding in itself too, just because you get to see the progression, the natural 100%. Progression of, these directors, each of them adding their own style, and then you get to this. So I've been on a cloud 9 since Dead Reckoning Part 1. I can't praise it enough, and I'm really excited to be here to break it down with you.
Would you say you're in the clouds like Mr. Tom Cruise is in this backdrop? What is you're dropping off a cliff?
I'm
right there with
you. He's crazy, but we love him.
This man is single-handedly just giving us just blockbuster enjoyment, exhilarating films. There's so much passion that are poured into these movies that we'll talk about. And Mr. Cruise will be definitely a topic of conversation. But before we get into this conversation, y'all, make sure if you guys are excited as we are to talk about this film, excited for this franchise, hit the thumbs up, share the video. Thoughts in the comments. What did you like? What didn't you like? What theories? What Easter eggs? What things did you all catch about the film? Talk about it in the comments. And of course, not only subscribing to the channel here, but my buddy Amanda, whose link can be found in the description of this video, Candid Cinema. As she mentioned briefly, she did a binge of all the Mission Impossible films. She reviewed all of them. They're on her channel. They're fantastic. So definitely do yourself a favor and check out her reviews for those films. So, Amanda, we are here talking about this movie again, full spoilers, y'all. And I guess the first topic of conversation is right now, as we're recording this on a Tuesday, the Rotten Tomato score is at a 98% on over 200 critic reviews thus far. And I just have a question for you. Are you surprised that it's that high? And again, and when the film comes out later in the week, it'll probably fluctuate maybe a couple percentage. It's going to be, obviously, going to be, a fresh film. 97 to 96 might be on the low end, but I mean, are you as surprised as I am? Because I enjoyed it, as we'll talk about, but I didn't expect it to be this beloved. Are you surprised by that?
Honestly, I'm not, and I'll tell you why. I think everyone forgot what a good action film was. So they watched, not even MI7, I'm talking about Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
Because that broke everyone's brains. It broke the box. It broke everybody. And I think that prepared everyone for what MI7 was capable of doing. It's not necessarily Fallout. For me, even though Fallout's one of top 3, it's so good. I just think that there's such a new audience that Tom Cruise brought in with Top Gun Maverick.
That is so true. Yeah.
It's a whole new generation that's going to be, wow, Tom Cruise is really cool. Let me watch Mission Impossible. And then I think that's what's really pushing this. And I think that's
Mhm.
what is making everyone really appreciate him, because again, he's
Yeah.
doing his own stunts, and I think you can tell the difference when you're
Mhm.
watching it. The
Mhm.
story's relevant. I think like it scared me watching it. So like clearly we're having troubles today.
Right. The entity
So,
is
yeah.
tagging your boy. Yeah, yeah.
So I just think that that percent, like on Rotten Tomatoes, is
Yeah.
warranted. And I think that people are just realizing that you can have a beautiful balance of like a
Yeah.
story, a
Yep.
good thought-provoking story, and then
Yeah.
incredible action sequences. And that's what Dead Reckoning Part 1 is. So
Well said, Amanda. I'll be honest. I'm a bit, I don't want to say shocked, but I am surprised that it is that high because we have been in this. Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse has been great. John Wick 4 has been great. Creed 3 has been. I mean, we've had some like action-based Extraction a couple weeks ago was really good. We've had some really good action-driven films, but it has been bogged down with regardless of how I felt about. I enjoyed The Flash. I enjoyed the latest Indiana Jones film, but the box office haven't been nice to those films that I just mentioned, nor has the critical response from the critics as well as the audience. So I was just thinking that, man, people are just so cynical right now and just so in a funk that you're just like, oh, every movie right now that's a big blockbuster sucks. But
yeah.
as you just said, man, I think there is a different expectation and an appreciation from not just Tom Cruise, but Christopher McQuarrie, the cast they bring on, the crew that they bring on. And not to get too funny, because it is, it was a topic of conversation a couple years ago, that clip of Tom Cruise yelling at it wasn't the whole crew, but he was yelling at a couple people during the quarantine, during the mass 6 feet distance. There were people that weren't cooperating with the rules. And there's, again, if you all don't know, just type in Tom Cruise yelling and you'll find a clip. And again, I know there's some people like, man, why is he yelling at underpaid? And there's that conversation, but then there's also the conversation. There's a lot on the line. This movie is providing jobs for people. This movie, as he says in that video, I got studios calling me every night. I'm trying to, save cinema. So there's definitely a topic to be had there, but it all stems to the passion, the determination, and the dedication to bring us something that, like you just mentioned, is kind of hard to find, at least in this summer alone, that the blockbusters haven't lived up to expectations. So I'm happy that it's doing well. And as we'll talk about when we wrap up this video, I think it's going to result to some big box office receipts when it is all said and done. But before we get into the box office, we got to talk about the helmer, the person behind the camera that's also writing the story. And by the time Mission Impossible 4 comes out next year, if it does come out next year, me and Amanda were talking about some of the strikes that's going on. We'll see if there's any delays. Hopefully there's not. But once the 8th film comes out, Christopher McQuarrie would have directed half of the films in the franchise, because Amanda and I, we rewatched all the films. And like Amanda said, the first 4 were distinctively different. You had De Palma, you had John Woo, you had J.J. Abrams and Brad Bird, very different directors. There's maybe some crossover in their style, but not for the most part. They're all kind of stylized in their own way. But McQuarrie has come in, Amanda, and has taken the reins, and he has collaborated with Tom Cruise, and they seem to just be Martin Scorsese, De Niro, DiCaprio, Spike Lee, Denzel type of collaborations where they love to work with each other. They know each other's positives and negatives and pros and cons. And your thoughts, Amanda, before we get into the writing the story, but just from a directional standpoint, what did you think about Christopher McQuarrie's direction on this film, Dead Reckoning Part 1?
It's just so polished. I think that's the best word for it, because I think that if you watch like from MI, like the first one to maybe not so much De Palma, but 2, 3, 4, and like 5, like McQuarrie had to find his footing with Rogue Nation and where
Yeah.
he fits.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I think that it just feels like he has a firm grasp of the genre itself. Like it's not only
Right.
an action film, you're putting in the spy thriller element, you're putting in the espionage, which is a key element. And I think that some directors, J.J. Abrams, forgot to kind of work that into it, in my humble opinion. That's just me. But I just think that here it's just a perfect marriage. They understand each other, like you said, and they build that confidence with each other, where Tom is going to talk to Christopher McQuarrie and go like back and forth to really just nail this. And I feel like it's so meticulous at the same time. You do not miss one beat in any of the films that McQuarrie has directed. Everything's so precise and in line that you have to really pay attention to his stuff. So I think that if anyone had to take over MI, like he's absolutely perfect for this, and I don't want anyone else touching it, to be honest, after this point.
Ooh, piggyback off of what you said regarding his direction.
Mm.
I couldn't agree with you more as far as like it is so meticulous, and it is easy for a director, especially in today's climate of like these blockbusters get 200, 250. I believe the budget of this film was 290. And take into account that they were shooting during the pandemic and there's reshoots and there's different things that they had to do to kind of get it up to that number, which does seem high. But again, when you take into account all the behind the scenes issues that it went through, it's just easy to kind of rely on visual effects, CGI. Oh, we'll fix this in post. Oh, this is my third time. I can maybe take my foot off the pedal and just give people just action, action, action.
Yeah.
But you said it perfectly, Amanda. The collaboration with Cruise and McQuarrie, and also Cruise being a producer of the film, there's so much attention to detail. Like this is not to degrade action, but this is a thought-provoking action spy thriller. Like we're not just here to bam, bam, shoot cars, explosions. We're diving into, okay, as we'll talk about AI and the fear around AI and the political gains that people try to get their hands on with controlling AI. And there's obviously character stuff that we'll talk about with the character development. And it's just so well put together. You're sitting here for 2 hours and 43 minutes. And man, I've seen it twice at this point. That runtime does not feel like 2:43. It is so well put together. We'll talk about some of my issues with some of the story plots, but as far as the pacing of the film goes, it is just, you're on the ride. You're on the mission with these great characters and this great direction. So let us know in the comments, y'all. How do you feel about the direction? We'll talk about the writing here in a second, but just in general, focusing on the direction by McQuarrie. And one thing I also want to mention before we wrap this particular portion up, Mission Impossible 1 was, I've regained an appreciation for that film on a rewatch.
Right.
And I don't know if it was me, Amanda, but this had a little bit of that first Mission Impossible vibe, the tilting of the camera, the conversations being held. Some of them were better than some, which we'll talk about later, but it felt very much in vain that I felt like Christopher McQuarrie, even though he's directed, again, there'll be 4 films next year, he still wants to pay homage to what came before and the foundation that was laid before, and just let people know that he isn't just, I don't say cocky, but he is an appreciator of this franchise. And like you said, the genre, and this definitely felt more so in line than the first one than any of the films. And there's so many examples of that I could think of. Number one, the obviously Kendrick's being brought back is a big obvious one. We haven't seen him since the first one. The train sequence, obviously we know there's a train sequence in the first one. This one was we'll talk about was way more practical, number one, but also just exhilarating. And there's so many countless examples of how this was almost like an homage of that first one. Did you get similar vibes to that, Amanda?
I said it literally. I'm so happy you brought it up, because I literally said it in my review, and I was watching it, and I think a lot of it had to do with Kittredge coming back. Where he was like, you know what? I can play around with it. Let me do these Dutch angles. Let me do these really like close-ups on all of these like actors. And I thought that worked so well. And it kind of made me emotional, because I'm like, you know how long that this franchise has been going on, and you're still circling back to the first one. That's honestly a testament to De Palma and how talented he is as a director as well. So it was just so nice that like you caught that, because even like you marathoned it too. So you caught those little things that you watched it so close together. But man, it made me so happy. I was like, that's absolute perfection. It works so well. And I'm just really happy they brought Kittredge back. And then he really paid homage to the first Mission Impossible and Brian De Palma. So I was really happy about that.
Yes, the comparisons to part one, as we just alluded to, was very noticeable. Let us know if you guys felt the same way. But pivoting over to what I want to talk about now, Amanda, is, and we'll get back to McQuarrie as far as the writing goes, but the performances. Obviously, Tom Cruise, Haley Atwell, Vin Raines, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, who I'll talk about in a second. Performance-wise, what really stood out? Who was your MVP? What were some performances that maybe didn't hit the mark for you, just in generally speaking? Let's kind of talk about these performances here, because for the most part, I thought everyone brought their A game. Yeah. Some of the characters didn't get as much justice as I wanted, but just generally speaking, Amanda, what did you think about these performances, and who really stood out to you?
So the one person that has made this franchise so fun is Simon Pegg. And I think he is the MVP. So I kind of look at it this way, and I really love that they put the emphasis on friendship and what they mean to
Yeah.
each other in this movie in particular. So I feel like Tom Cruise, I don't want to say took a back seat. I don't want to say that, but Ethan Hunt kind of did, but it's also okay given his age. And this is the movie that I really felt that he got older. And it pains me to say it. It just hurts me, but he's dealing with a lot of stuff considering where the story goes, and we'll talk about that. And then I
Yeah.
think that Luther grounds him so much,
My
and
boy.
he's just so emotional and emotionally connected to them, and I just adore Ving Rhames in this role. I really love him, and then Simon Pegg brings that lightheartedness. So I think the three of them just work as like this perfect unit because they've lost like so many people. So
Mm.
all three of them for me were the MVP. There's one scene in particular, which I'll mention later, that really just made me emotional. I'm like, they've been with each other for so long, and you don't
Yeah.
realize that the team has been there for so long until you watch this movie, and then you watch them like you did, you marathon them, right? So
Yeah.
they were great. Haley Atwell surprised
New
me, but
additions. Yeah.
I have my little peeves with what happens with Haley Atwell. Um, I love Rebecca Ferguson, which we will talk about, and it goes hand in
Me too.
hand.
I love her so much, Amanda.
There wasn't enough Vanessa Kirby. I was like, my girl, I really
White
loved her.
Widow.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at, and I think that Benji, Luther, Ethan, all three MVPs for me together
Yeah.
as a unit more so than individually.
Before I get my thoughts, curious on how you felt, and we'll tie it into the story a little bit later. But Gabriel, our main villain, also Paris, Palm. What did you think about those new additions to the cast? Did they stand out to you? Was there some elements that didn't work for you with those two additions?
I think Palm was fine. I really
Mm.
liked the fact that she didn't talk, and I think people had an issue with the fact that she didn't have that many lines, but given what
Mm.
her character does in this film, I like that it was just her presence because now she's so
Yeah.
well known to everyone as Mantis, right? So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it was nice to see her kicking ass. But with Gabriel, I don't know. I was in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I think they needed to put a face to the entity
To
to
the
make
entity.
it.
Yeah.
But the tie-in with Gabriel, I'm like, we've never even talked about this with Ethan. So it was
Yeah.
just, I don't know. I felt it was weird, but at the same
Yeah.
time, the payoff will be in part two.
I agree with you as far as MVPs. Tom Cruise, I think. Would you be borderline saying this might be one of his better perform? Again, I think he's been great throughout the franchise, but do you think, because emotionally speaking, there's a lot of emotional. We'll talk about a death of a certain character, but do you think he gave one of maybe his more memorable performances? Not putting aside screen time or action. What do you think
Mm.
about? Do you think this is one of his better performances from Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt,
Yeah,
emotionally and complexity and all that?
yeah, I'd say that. I
Yeah.
think this one, considering what the story is with the I
Yeah.
think it was like perfect for an older agent to be
Yeah.
terrified. And he was
To be,
terrified.
yeah. It's new
He
new
didn't,
territory. It's just nothing he's really. I mean, he's faced
right?
obviously tech-based franchise, but not to the
Yeah.
fact that the tech is against him this time, because they always use the mask and they use all the stuff to the resources, but this time it's an enemy,
Yeah,
it's the AI. So
exactly.
I agree with you there. But also you mentioned Benji and Luther. Those guys are fantastic. I love them both. I'm loving Vin Raines and him being kind of like you said, the groundedness to Ethan, and he always believes in Ethan, right? No matter what. And Benji, Simon Pegg's comedic timing and the emotional depths that he's able to play with in his character has been really fun. The new additions I really enjoyed. Haley Atwell, Marvel fumbled the ball on not allowing her to, do more, especially with Agent Carter. And who knows, the future is very bright for the MCU with the multiverse. But she was a very interesting character because she's kind of an amalgamation of like the badass women characters we've come to love in this franchise, like an Elsa, like a Maggie Q, a Paula Pattinson. But then she also has that more vulnerable newness to her. Like she's not perfect at everything in the film. She has her ups and downs, and she might have been the reason why a particular character dies, which we'll get into. But I
Oh,
really liked Haley, and I thought she had a freshness, a spark to her that I really enjoyed. And
yeah.
Palm, I thought she was great as Paris, very cool character, and I'm glad that they didn't kill her off. And she's going to be joining the family here in the eighth one. the Gabriel of it all. Now, performance wise, I thought that he did what was told of him. The actual character Gabriel was just so one dimensional to me. And I know they're playing, we'll talk about the entity here, and it plays into that kind of like dullness and of a AI. AI doesn't have personality, right? It's a, you know, it's something that's not tangible. And it almost kind of makes Gabriel feel like he's kind of so detached to me, where it's just so mechanical in some of the things he's there to just do a mission. He's obviously, it plays into the franchise, but I don't know. I'm still kind of torn on the Gabriel character. Yeah. But that kind of brings us into, speaking of a character, and we'll talk about the actual story here, but the entity. I will admit, Amanda, seen it twice. I can appreciate the sentiment of like, yes, we are living in a time now, and this is not just like a bottle film. Like, this is something that we'll be talking about for the next century as far as technology, the reliance of it. If it gets in the wrong hands, it could be catastrophe across the world. Yeah. But going and looking at all the other missions, you know, you have the thumb drive, you have the virus, you have the rabbit's foot, you have missile launch. I mean, and then the syndicate, it always seemed like something that was just so, I don't know, tangible, and just like you can grasp the depths of it all. But like the AI nature of it just seems so just off-putting, not off-putting, but it didn't really entirely work for me, this whole entity. And like at one point in the film, it's almost like a literal character when they're at the meeting and they're like, wait a minute, is it here? And it's like, it felt like I was watching like a transform. I don't know. What did you feel about the use of the entity, the key, which is the actual mission at hand? Did it work for you entirely as far as that whole character within itself?
I think for AI, it's very tricky to make it a villain in your film, to make it a character. It's so hard. And I do think that at the meeting when it was present, it's a bit on the nose. I'm like, I get it. Yeah, I understand.
Like the little predator. Every time it came, like a predator noise came. Like, oh
yeah, but I think what worked for me, even though it was too much in that case, was the fact that you are integrating the fear, that's the word, the fear of it through the comms, through the, you know, people disappearing on screen, like through Ethan and not being able to talk to Benji, like that's his fallback, like stuff like that. When they work it into the action scenes, I thought made it stronger. But when you're literally sitting there talking about, but the key and the entity and it's around us, and I'm like, we get it. But I think there's like, it's an odd balance. I completely understand. Like, it's a weird thing to kind of handle, but I think they did the best they could with it because it's so hard to do.
Because I'm just, again, going back to the franchise, not a lot of there's very few moments where you actually see the MacGuffin at work. Like we see it at the beginning of the film, and I guess it just kind of ties to the story. And if you guys are watching the video, you obviously know the story, but we're introducing the NC very early on and see what it's capable of. The whole submarine thing is there, it's not there, and then the missile hits them. And then throughout the film, I guess the thing that was just kind of to me, if like, if you're going to lean so much on this NC being so, intimidating, which it is, it's almost like the Age of Ultron conversation. Like, Ultron should have been wreaking havoc in Age of Ultron. But again, their whole plot was like, well, Jarvis has been fighting Ultron the whole time. In this film, man, I'm thinking to myself, this entity can literally, and they have Carrie Ills at the beginning says like it's left footprints around different parts of the sectors of missiles, financial stuff. But like, why didn't it just like launch nukes and just create havoc across the world? Which makes me think that there probably is like a human being maybe that does control the entity that might be revealed in the part 8 or part 2. But I just feel like to lean so heavily on, you have an actual person as your villain, and then the entity being kind of the one behind the scene, it just didn't feel, again, going back to all the other MacGuffins in the film, it just felt so weird to me, the way that they used the entity. And like you just mentioned, there was a lot of exposition when it came to, I think of the scene with Benji and Luther and just talking about, again, it is fearful, it's just heightened, nature, but it was just like, oh my goodness, we get it. It's bad. And the key, we need to, it didn't flow well to me. It wasn't as cerebral and surgical as like taking down the Syndicate and the Apostles and, all that stuff. It just seemed a little too, I don't know, goofy. The word that only comes to mind right now.
Honestly, that's fair. Again, because like we're living with, I think our generation is the ones that had to go through the most change. And
Yes.
now
Yes.
AI is like AI is the one thing where it's like, how much farther can we advance with this? Like, what
Yeah.
if we? Like, it's
Yeah.
impossible. So we had the most change, and then it just went like stagnant. There was like nothing.
Yeah.
It's like this new technology that we have. So I think with us, it's really hard to even talk about AI or to develop a script surrounding it because
Yeah.
we still don't know that much about it at the same time. So like I get what you're saying. And I do agree that it did feel like of all things that we could have brought into the Mission Impossible universe, it's like this is probably the next step that they could have
Yeah.
done at the same time. But
Right. Right.
I mean, it's good. It's good. It's bad. Like it is flawed. I hope it comes together in part two.
That's
But
what
like
that's what I was gonna
I
get
hear
at.
you.
Yeah, there is a part two that's gonna probably elaborate on it a little bit more because as of
Yeah.
right now, again, based on the opening, it's in this submarine and it seems to be the source code. And again, it just seems a little bit like, okay, and it's one of those stereotypical action superhero things where we have something that just turns it off and just shuts it all down. So that's another thing to me. It's just like the rabbit's foot. If we get in our control, we control it. The thumb drive with the names on there, obviously the disease they had in the second one, and obviously the syndicate was just people that you can take out. So it's going to boil down to execution for part two for me to really
Yeah.
see if I'll appreciate where they were trying to go with it. Because also going back to one of our first conversations, Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise using the idea of like fighter pilots not being used and drones and like taking over, human jobs and things of that nature. So it kind of reminded me a little bit of that. So I'm very curious to see how they stick the landing. But going back to, I guess, Gabriel here for a second, tying into the AI of it all, your thoughts on, first off, I thought it was just so interesting with, if you remember a couple years ago, I believe Nicholas Hoult was casted in the role, but he was doing the grade and doing some other things. I'm very curious on how that rewrite would have worked because obviously Nicholas Hoult is like 20 years younger than Tom Cruise. So I'm pretty sure they had to rewrite some of that stuff for him being connected to his past. But tying to Gabriel, we get the flashback and we understand that he killed someone important to Ethan. I'm curious on where, and putting our theory hats on, where do you think that's going to go? Because that was something to me like that's obviously being set up for part two. Who was
Yeah.
the woman? I'm curious to know, Amanda. And do you think she's still here? And what more reveals could there be for Gabriel and Ethan's connection?
Honestly, I was really surprised that they chose to do like pre-IMF Ethan, and I
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
far along in the trilogy, the fact that you can still pull that out,
right. It's like,
amazing. No,
yeah, and I
like
love they used the old
seriously,
picture from like Tom Cruise from the '80s when he was looking at the file. It's like,
yeah,
there's Tom
I was
Cruise.
like, what's happening? So I thought that was cool.
Yeah,
I think I don't know. At first I thought it was like a girlfriend, but
right.
then I thought it could have been his mom because like
Ooh,
I don't know.
she looked a
I
little bit
know.
young to be the mom. I don't
I don't
know.
we didn't see his face either,
We
kind
didn't.
of.
They purposely didn't show us. Yeah, yeah,
So it could be like a hella young, like juvie type of delinquent person of
yeah,
Ethan
yeah.
Hunt before he went to IMF. Because I don't think we know how young he was when he started,
Right, we
unless I'm
don't. No,
wrong.
I mean they somewhat talk about your past catching up to you and whatnot, but they never
Yeah,
yeah like told us maybe because going back to the file, it was probably a times or like his date of birth on
yeah.
there, but yeah, but
Oh,
his
yeah.
mind, that's interesting. That's because I'm going back to the scene when they're at the bar when Gabriel meets with Grace for the first time, and he says the woman he just uses these women, right? And he just when
Yeah,
they don't use a service purpose, he just gets rid of them. So I took it as like a romantic angle, and let's be
yeah,
honest, most of the women that Ethan comes across somehow, some way becomes some little bit of romance to the
yeah.
extent. So
Sure.
I'm very curious on who she is and if she's even dead. Hell, maybe
Yeah.
she's the consciousness of the entity is her or she's control. I don't know. We'll see what comes. But I was just like, that seems like a part two, part Mission
Oh,
Impossible
yeah.
8 that they will expand upon. I guess getting back into like the story beats, one of the things that I will say as far as like what did work for me is like how the story built on tension and built
Mhm.
on the suspense of it all. Again, the unknown, like you mentioned, of the entity, but also just like going back to just how they put together the story to make it feel like you're part of the ride and part of the journey, and how they paced it all out, and how all that played out. But I will bring up again, going back to our Mission Impossible 1 comparisons and Kittredge, one of the things that did stand out to me that I'm curious on how you felt about the CIA, not tagging along, but chasing down Ethan. What was that, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, the cop that was following him
Yeah.
and to the Russians. That plot, and I love me some that plot's kind of goofy. And then when you have the two CIA agents, Shea Wiggins and the gentleman that played his partner, that to me, first off, seemed redundant to part 4, but also it's like that didn't even serve. Well, I guess at the end they kind of tie in. But what did you feel about those two characters, and do you think they're going to play into part 8? And they have the scene on the train where the older agent's like, "So what would you do if you had the key?" And he's like, "I would do the right thing." Like, what did you think about their role into this film, and I guess just the CIA of it all?
I'm so tired of the CIA.
It's like, I mean, you just meant to save the world 10 times.
I'm like, how many times did it prove to you that you need IMF? You need them without them telling you.
Spoiler alert, they save the world. They
You
get
know
the
what I
mission
mean?
done.
Like, and it's true. Like, you should have known from like Rogue Nation, like just cut and dry. Like, that's also why, like, after Rogue Nation and then watching Fallout, and then like CIA coming into it again with Henry Cavill, like with Angela Bassett's ending, and I'm like, we're doing this again? Like, are you serious? And then seeing them here, I'm like, you know what? It's for comedic relief at this point, because it just doesn't make any sense for the CIA to not understand that you need IMF to do the dirty work that you're not going to do. That's it. Off the grid, they need to do it. You just, I don't know. It's just for comedic relief, because I laughed with him. I'm like, you're not going to get Ethan. Ethan's not going to give you anything. Like, we know this already. It's not going to happen. So I don't know. I also, like, I rode the wave with them, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm just not.
I'm trying to think of who Shea Wiggins, his character's name, but there was a line that makes me think that there is some connection to Ethan, because the black gentleman, the agent, says to him, "Oh, he's like, he says something about like, do you know him personally?" And something like, "I don't know him personally." So there might be, and also there's a scene when they're in the shootout, and he looks at Ethan, and there's kind of like an acknowledgement, like, "All right, do what you need to do," or whatever. So I'm very curious on how that's going to tie into it. Again, I don't know if Shea Wiggins' character is connected to the woman that died, and maybe that's a ex-lover, boyfriend, brother, or someone close to him that he knew, and that's how the connections tied to Ethan to a certain. Maybe he still blames him for her death. But yeah, with the whole CIA chasing Ethan the whole time, it's just like you just said, it's like, come on, guys, how many goddamn times can you not trust? He knows he gets the job done. And understanding that, I know it was Kittredge that told him when he got the key, like, I'm gonna have to come for you, because we want the key. That was the whole, I guess, pursuit of the key, was like, well, no matter if you're good or bad, we need to make sure. His name was Jasper, by the way, Shea Wiggins' character. But yeah, let us know in the comments how you felt about the addition to the CIA and all that stuff being tied into it. But man, I got a circle here. One of my biggest gripes with this film is Ilsa's death. I am a huge Rebecca Ferguson fan, so understand that I am a bit of a stan, if you want to call me that. So there is that side of it. I'm a big fan of hers, and I just want more of her and everything. Get her in everything. But revisiting part 5, Rogue Nation and Fallout, Amanda, I think, and I might be speaking hyperbole, but she is the most compelling character in this entire franchise to me. I really do think, even over Ethan. I am such an Elsa fan, and especially in part 5 when she just wants to get home, but the British intelligence is like, nope, we got one over on you, get this mission done. And we know Lang was, it was just so much going. I just love that character so much. Amanda, she got sidelined so hard in this movie to me. It was so frustrating, because we opened the movie with Abu Dhabi, the cool shootout, desert thing. They fake her death there, and I'm like, no way she's dead. No way she's dead this early. But they were showing us their hand. Then she gets a scene later on when she teams up with the crew in Venice, and she has the moment with Ethan on the boat, and they have the non-verbal communication on, like, they love each other. They have appreciation for each other when they don't say anything. And then we find out that Gabriel says you're going to have to choose between Grace and choose between Elsa. If I'm Ethan, I'm like, I'm choosing Elsa all day, every day. But we know Ethan's a man of the people. He wants everyone to live. Very Captain America of him. We get to now. Listen, the moment it hit me twice. I got emotional because I love the character so much. But the scene's pretty cool. Sword versus, he's fighting Gabriel. But I'm on my soapbox now, man. I hated it that she had to die. If you wanted to sideline her and save her for part 8, I'm cool with that. because I also know behind the scenes, I believe, because it was shot over 5 years, Rebecca Ferguson is a superstar. Doom Part 2, the new Silo show on Apple TV. She's busy, rightfully so. She's in high demand. You want to silent her and do that and then bring her back for Part 8, that's fine. But to kill her, Amanda, that broke my heart. And she's dead. I think she is dead. I don't think there's like another fake out because they already faked it out at the beginning. She got stabbed in the heart. She's dead. I mean, she's gone.
Yeah.
I'm going to toss it to you, Amanda. That is my biggest issue with the film, on top of a couple of things that we talked about, the CIA and the plot. But what did you think about the handling of the character? And I guess any final words? So I guess this is our therapy session for the character Elsa, who was my favorite character in the franchise.
Oh, I hated it. I hated every second of it. I could not stand it. Not so much like, I think, how can I put this? When I heard that they said to each other, you know, like, this is our first time in Venice, I'm like, oh,
here we go. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence, what do you mean? I was like, no, don't say that.
First time and last time.
Exactly. So here's the thing. You just said she had Dune, she had Silo. She's a very busy woman. I personally think it had to deal with scheduling conflicts more so that was like tied into all of this than you bring in Haley Atwell. I think that's what had to be done. Also, out of everybody, track record wise, she is the most expendable out of the entire thing. And I've thought about this. I don't like it. I don't like what I'm saying because I love her so much. But I do think that there were more factors other than like, this is just the story for Ilsa, unfortunately. And it sucks because I don't want that. But in that moment, I was like, how could they bring in? And I was like taking it out on Haley Atwell while I was watching.
I mean, the film poses it that way. They literally say you have to choose between great. It's like the audience is like, who do you want to choose? I'm looking at Elsa all day, every day.
I'm like, I don't care about the key. The eye's gonna be there. Like, I didn't care. So I felt like I was like resentful. That's it the whole time. Like, and it makes me sad. That was it. And here's the other thing. I'm gonna push it even further, because this is what's going to bother me. And I really hope this doesn't happen because I'm going to get mad. This franchise needs to die with Ethan Hunt in IMF. Okay? Now, yes, exactly. You know where I'm going with this. You know where I'm going with it, because it wasn't a pass the torch moment, but down the line, it could very much be a pass the torch moment that I will resent for the rest of my life, to be perfectly honest. So I'm very worried for part 2 if they go that route. No offense to Haley Atwell, but they are setting it up for that. They are setting it up because they said maybe they're going to make more Mission Impossible films after this, right? Tom Cruise is still executive producer. McQuarrie's still doing it. Yeah, I didn't mean to jump the gun there, but
you're good. I mean, so they do set it up that way where Haley Atwell, and we'll talk about the ending and break it all down. But they do pose it where she's going to be, recruited by Kittredge and almost kind of paralleling or mirroring. She's a little bit, she's older than when Ethan was recruited, but the idea of like someone coming from a bad background, she was a thief, doing all this stuff, and then she gets recruited, use her skills to, she's a resource. So we'll see what comes of that. But again, let us know in the comments. What did you think about the death? How it was handled? I think the door is closed, but if there's any conspiracy theorists out there, is there a way that she could be brought back? I mean, we know, Amanda, mask off, taking off, technology. There's things that can be done, but I think it's pretty safe to assume based on I'm always one of those components. If I don't see a body, they're not dead. If they would have had her be stabbed and not see Ethan find her body, then there's like maybe a possibility. But the fact that they showed him like mourning over her, and then we see him on the balcony, they were at mourning over her, and then the mood in the room with Luther and Benji and obviously Grace mentioned, like, I think she's dead. Like, I do definitively think she is dead. I hate to say it, but they killed her off. And going back to your point, I think narratively speaking, like you just mentioned, from Rogue Nation to Ghost Protocol, or Rogue Nation to Fallout, it was like, wait, why are you back in it? Like, I let you had to walk away, and they're like, oh, they had one on me. I was like, I guess that makes sense, but it's like, you could have just walked anyway. But in this film, they tell us no, she's no longer part of the British intelligence. Like she's a rogue agent because, as she talks about, she knew Gabriel because some of her friends that still work in intelligence was like, hey, you're not sentient. You can do kind of your own thing. Can you look into this for us? So she was kind of a free agent. And this is like, I guess, what do you do at that point with that character? So I don't know. That was just like, I hated it because I just love that character. She's such a badass. And not to compare it to Fast and Furious because the franchise, I think, was in a much better position than Fast was after Tokyo Drift. But the way that like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson came into Fast 5 and kind of injected new life to the franchise. And again, not saying that they needed Rebecca to inject something new, but her presence was just so like, oh my goodness, this character is so cool and just brought a whole new shift to the franchise and the chemistry with Tom Cruise. So she was that type of an impact for me for the franchise. And I'm going to miss her, Amanda. I am going to miss her. So shout out to Elsa in the comments. Let us know how you felt. So wrapping it up to this point again, and also actually before I even go to the wrap up, I got to talk about the action because that's something that we always appreciate with this franchise, Amanda. Out of our action sequences, Abu Dhabi, the cat and mouse game at the airport, which I really had fun with, the car chase sequence with a little slapstick comedy. What else do we have? Obviously, the fight on the bridge between Gabriel and Elsa, and then our conclusion with the picture behind us, him jumping on the train, the actual train coming down. I mean, there's so much action, Amanda. Take it away. What stood out to you? What was your favorite action set piece? The stage is yours.
Wow. So everything that you just described, we were locked in from the very start of this thing. Like locked in. I was like in a trance. I was eating my popcorn. I was living.
Yeah.
So the entire movie, if you guys remember how you felt watching the last, I think 30 minutes of Top Gun Maverick when we were doing that mission, like my back was sweating. Okay. Take that.
Yes.
But the whole movie, every single action sequence had me sweating from beginning to end. They literally pulled out all the stops. I love the cat and mouse game because again, the AI's into it. The deactivation of the bomb at the exact same time. Like I don't think they've ever done that before, where it's technically like 2 missions in one.
Good point.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying. Yeah, I think you're right on that. Yeah, that scene. I'll let you. That scene was so fun to me. Just like and Haley, you know, her. Yeah, that was a very like technical action, but it was just like the suspense of it all was just so thrilling.
Yeah, no, I loved every second of that one. I think the double car chase, because I look at it as like it was one stop for a bit. Once I was like, okay, the yellow Fiat just made me die of laughter. Because I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But again, an older agent playing around with that technology in the car. I know it's like a bit busted. Like I like that they played into that. And then he drove it.
Was that, by the way, man, was that a sex joke? Was that a bit of a sex joke when he was like stick with me. It was like he was, you know, they were trying to get into the situation. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm not able to perform right now. This normally doesn't happen to me. Was it a little bit of like tongue-in-cheek sex joke there?
I think so, because he said it before at the airport.
Yeah.
Because she was like, I'll scream, and he's like, good. And I'm like, what? I was like, what is happening? I was like, okay, Kurt, like
tension there.
It was weird. I'm like, why are you working into this stuff? But anyway,
he's going back to his eyes wide shut.
I was
Stanley Kubrick there.
It's true.
Yeah, but yes, the actual scene. If you want to pick off there as far as the chase sequence. Which one? Because we've had some great chase sequences in my Mission Impossible franchise. Are you taking this one over the chase scene in Rogue Nation or the chase scene in Ghost Protocol? Of course, we have the motorcycle chase scene and 2. Like, where does this stack up as far as like chase sequences in vehicles in whether most motorcycle or cars? Where does this stack up for you?
I am a sucker for a motorcycle chase. I think that's why I love the motorcycle jousting in Mission Impossible 2 that John Woo did. Okay. I'm a sucker for a motorcycle chase. So I think when Rebecca Ferguson led the motorcycle chase, I think that was Rogue Nation.
Rogue Nation. Yeah, that was a fun.
That was incredible. I think I would do Rogue Nation.
Yeah,
I think the Ghost Protocol chase was good. I put this in 3rd. I just think it ran a bit long. That was me, and I'm like, okay, when are we? Can we like speed? There it was like, can we speed it up? Because I was anxious. I'm like, can we just get to the point here? Because again, he's driving the car, and like the flipping with the handcuffs and all of that, and I'm like, dude, like holy Lord, you're doing all of this.
And
So
Paris
that
is
was
chasing
good.
them through the streets. Yeah,
Yeah, and like
that was
Palm
that
is
was
so
fun.
funny.
She
Yeah,
is. She was having a good time too. The character
yeah,
itself. That was fun, and that leads us to the fight sequence. Elsa, Gabriel. We didn't
yeah,
get as much hand-to-hand fighting in this one as we did with Fallout.
yeah.
Which shout out to that bathroom brawl, hands down, the best of the franchise. What do you think about that hand-to-hand combat between Elsa and Gabriel?
She's exceptional. Every time
Yeah.
she has her own fight scene, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just in love with her even more if it's even possible.
Yeah.
But that one it was good. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was engaging, but
Yeah.
the one that terrified me because I was just like, it was crazy for me was
Mhm.
when he lost the comms
Oh,
to
right.
to
To the
Benji.
yeah.
When
Oh,
he
I
had
forgot the alley fight. Alley fight.
that alley
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
Oh my
Close
God. Like
quarters.
I was like ready. I'm like, he's gonna die. He's gonna get
Are
really
you not
hurt.
even kill him? Oh
I
no.
was like,
Oh
it was
man.
close. It was
It
close. You
was
know what I mean?
close.
So
Yeah.
I think even seeing like again, like an older Ethan Hunt, he took down two who
So
are
yeah.
like I guess half
Younger,
the
yes,
age
assassins. Yeah.
with a blade. Like
Mm,
he did it in an alleyway. Like it was crazy. Losing the
yeah.
comms at the same time that he had to get to Elsa, I was like, damn, like
That's
that really
intense.
got
Yeah.
me.
I'm with you. The
Yeah.
only gripe I have, and this is kind of a nitpick.
Mm.
They didn't have no guns, Amanda. They could have just killed Ethan Hunt, just have a gun, shoot him in the head, mission
I
accomplished.
know.
Like you bring in,
I
knives to like just to shoot him, It also like speaks to this everyone in this movie. Why does no one have a gun? If Elsa would have
know.
had a gun, she just killed Gabriel. And not to go on a tangent here, another nitpick. How many times were people pickpocketed in this movie, Amanda? I lost count. Like this felt like Mission Impossible 2 when we had like 19 face reveals. Everyone was like, "Aren't you guys elite
Yeah,
stealth
it
agents? Like
was
you can't feel
magic.
someone grabbing something off of you. Like it happened like 19 times, man. I couldn't.
Yeah,
I
it turned
was
into
lost
a
count how many
magic
times
shot
a
every
drinking
time you
game.
do it.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
oh, yeah. And we ended it on the film with Gabriel getting pickpocketed by Ethan. So not to go on a Titan, but yes, the alley fight was very intense, and I love how Palm took that moment to keep that in her memory break because obviously she uses that later and that
Yeah.
haunted her that she lost to someone and he spared her life. But then that leads us into and we'll just kind of, I guess, culminate it into wrapping up the mission film, which again, at this point, guys, thank you for watching the video. If you're enjoying the conversation, like, share, comment, subscribe to Amanda's channel. Let's talk about the ending, Amanda. So at this point in the film, we lost my favorite character in Elsa. We have the conversation about recruiting Grace to being a part of this Mission Impossible force to take on the mission. And I think you said it in one of your throwback reviews how I love how this franchise shows us what they're going to do. And we kind of pull back. So they show Grace by telling her, oh, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to jump on the plane. You know, everything's smooth. I'm like, damn, this is happening pretty smoothly. But obviously, that was just the exposition of it all. She has the choice to put on the White Widow's face, and she does. We're on the train to meet the buyer who comes out to be Kidrix, who's not a bad guy. He's just the government. The government's trying to get their hands on the power of the key. But the actual bad guy who's trying to get under was Carrie character, who was the intelligence leader or whatever he was. He's trying to cut a deal with Gabriel. Gabriel kills him because he knows the location of where the source code is. And however you want to take it, Amanda, what did you think about the third act? Because I think, I'm just going to put it out there, and I'll share my thoughts after yours. The jumping off the cliff was fine. It happened too quick for me, but the whole buildup was that was like, it was super quick. But the train sequence falling apart, Amanda, probably my favorite set piece of this franchise, up there with the bridge in Mission Impossible 3, climbing a skyscraper, airplane fight in Fallout. I was on the edge of my seat, and also for my video game fans out there, it reminded me so much of Uncharted 2 with the Nathan Drake train sequence. But wherever you want to take it, Amanda, I'm going to pass the baton to you. What did you think about this third act?
I don't even have words for it because I do have one nitpick that I'm going to start with.
Yeah.
Vanessa Kirby has gorgeous blue eyes.
Take it away. Thank you. I thought I was tripping. Did they give her contacts? She had like red eyes. Like, did no one not notice her eye change?
I'm like, gorgeous blue eyes. Kittredge knew her when she was
a kid. Yeah.
Really, Atwell's walking in with the mask, and they gave the brown-eyed eye contacts to Vanessa
her brother, her freaking brother.
Her own brother. I'm like, what? And you know what? That kind
I'm
of
so glad you called that out because I thought I was tripping.
no, it's legit. I was looking at it and I'm like, but they're not this dumb. Like they would have given her contact lenses to make it, you know what I mean? Like it just didn't make sense. That was my one nitpick. I'm like, guys, they're not.
I thought I was tripping, Amanda. Like I thought like maybe she wears contact and they just don't, because he's like, oh, you changed your clothes and maybe she changed her eyes. I'm like, did she just smoke a joint while she was wet? She changed. Yes, thank you so much for bringing up Amanda, because I thought I was the only one. I was like, why does she look like her eyes are clearly not her? But take it away.
No, it annoyed me because I'm like, they're agents and they've been doing this for 3 decades, but they're not going to give her eye contact. Okay, the contact lenses. I'm like, okay. But the train leading into the train sequence, I really thought that the stunt of him flying off the cliff was going to be it. I'm like, this is going to be like a clean cut.
Because they've been building it up for like 3 years. Yeah.
I thought the editing was a bit rough because it took too long for him to get to the cliff because they had to do that entire exchange. So I'm like, that was the only thing that was off for me in that third act.
Yeah.
But this train, oh, I did not breathe. I did not breathe. I'm like, one of them is dying, but it was like one down.
Yes,
two
it was like a video
down.
game. It was literally like the kitchen scene, the dining scene, the freaking piano. Oh, Amanda. Oh my goodness, it was so exhilarating.
And I'm like, I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, but their upper body strength. Like, there's how the hell are you doing this? And I just didn't know. I didn't know when it was going to end, and I didn't know where it was going to end. And I had that same feeling with Across the Spider-Verse too, because when you watch it again, you're like more at ease. You're like, okay, cool. Like I know when it's going to end, it's fine. Here, I'm like, this could have gone on for another hour with this train just like completely like crashing. But I've never felt that. Like the level of anxiety, like this was worse than the ending of Top Gun Maverick for me. Like I was sweating buckets. I needed a stiff drink.
Yeah.
Like insanity.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
it is so good.
Take it away because that was just.
I will also not to kill the mood of this amazing scene. I will say another nitpick to me, and this is just a Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt is just like Indiana Jones. They have their superpowers like luck. The fact that when he was flying through the air, that he was able to find that train, that the cart that they were in, and kick off, because they were going to kill Grace at that point to give the key up. I'm like, come on, the man had no control of where he was going to go. But anyway, minus that, you said it perfectly, Amanda. It kept escalating because you would have thought after maybe one or two trains they would have found, but no, they kept heightening the sense of like urgency and the tension, and the train just kept coming down, which in reality that would be the case. Like that momentum, that train was going, I don't know how fast when Gabriel took off the brakes and all that, which by the way, to tie into the finale, Ethan and him fight on the train. Don't kill him. We need his information. He doesn't kill him. He holds back and he pickpocket the key, which to any complaints out there about this maybe feeling like part one of a part two, this is a complete story, regardless of how it wraps up. The objection was to get the key, and he got the key at the end of the film. Now, obviously, we're going to see what the key opens in the second one, but it is a beginning, middle, and end. But again, that scene, Amanda, was so great. And to bring it back to Palm as Paris, Gabriel betrays her, which I will mention. I forgot to say this about Gabriel. The sleeping pod, are they going to make it out, Amanda, to make it seem he's some type of half human, half cyborg thing? Because he was in this pod. There's a scene when Paris wakes him up and he's like connected to the entity. And it's just like, where are they exactly going with how connected he's the chosen one for the entity? I'm like, this entity thing is just so annoying. But Paris saves him, Ethan, when they're hanging down. She's going to be brought back. Grace is recruited. Tom, Ethan goes off on the parachute, and finale. And Grace being recruited by Kidrix, is she going to be the mole? Like she's still going to be working with Ethan and giving him insight whenever they're coming for him. She can tell, or is she just going to go full heel? Like, what do you think that angle is going to go with her being recruited to the CIA and everything?
That's a very good question, actually. Oh my God, she really did bother me this entire movie. It's just because of choices made. Like, I understand that you don't want to trust him, but you also have no idea what the hell you're stealing at the same time. So, like, what if someone's saying, like, give me what you have, the thing that you stole, because there are people that are trying to kill you. Yeah, sure, man, no problem. Like, why are you
Yeah.
holding on to it? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that the whole thing was weird. But there are choices made in this third act, especially when she's talking to Kittredge as White Widow, where you see
Mm-hmm.
that she does have this tie to Ethan now to do the right thing.
Do the right
There's a
thing. Yeah, she could. It
second
was
chance.
100 million. Was it 100 million that
I
she got
think
in her
so.
bank
Yes.
account?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So she has a second chance, and Ethan's giving her that. So I
yeah.
don't think that she's gonna like flip on him. She could do like a double agent,
Double agent. Yeah,
that
like
type of.
uh, um, Jeremy Renner's character, how he worked with Ethan, but he was still kind of playing that, making the
Yeah.
CIA thinks that he's, but he was helping Ethan the same as he can kind of replace
Yeah.
that, role. Yeah,
I think that's what's
Brent,
gonna
I
end
think
up
was his name.
happening.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's gonna end up happening. But I think this ending, compared to a lot of endings that end on a part one and a cliffhanger, like
Yeah.
you said, complete story,
Yeah. Yeah.
polished, tied together. It would kind of bookend too, because Kittredge spoke like towards the beginning, and then he spoke at the end about IMF and
Yeah.
who Ethan was and all of that. So
Hmm.
yeah, like I don't want to wait that long for part two, but it's something you do.
Delays are coming, I think.
I know.
Which I guess that kind of the segue and to wrap up the conversation with our part two theories. What do you think will happen with part two, Mission Impossible 8? Are we looking at immediate actions? We're going to pick right back up where the story left. Are we going to have a time jump of Grace working within the system, train coming out different? Paris now part of the team. We have Luther. He's going off. He said he's got to do something, off site so
Mhm.
the entity doesn't find them. Like,
Yeah.
what do you anticipate? I wish I would have saved it. I wish I can give this person credit. I saw it on Twitter the other day. There's a shot where they promoted the trailer for this film, and there's Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise are on like on an airplane. Someone had suggested, and they're not like newer airplanes, they're like old school airplanes. They suggested that Part 8 is gonna, or Mission Impossible 8 will be the entity like does its thing and like wipes out technology, and then we're gonna have to see, as you mentioned earlier, these older agents like a Tom Cruise or Ethan Hunt using old school CIA tactics of like not relying on technology and riding old analog planes and like having all this kind of throwback technology. That I was like, oh, that is a genius idea. I hope that comes true. But what do you think will come of part two, and how this is all going to culminate? Is Ethan going to die, Amanda?
Don't say it. Don't put that out
He's
there.
going to risk his life, put it all on the line.
You know what? I really like that theory. I
I
think that
like
would
it
be
too. I wish I would have
so.
saved it if I give them credit.
Yeah, I think that's just such a refreshing take, considering the buildup is all about this AI, and
Yeah,
we can control it, right? We can.
exactly. And to see it like
So
we only saw it take out the submarine in this one. Like, let's see what it can do. Like, let's see what Havoc can do, Reckoning it can do, and to wipe out all technology, communication. People got to go back to like, I don't know, sending pigeons for messages or using Morse code. Like,
yeah,
I would like that idea. That would be pretty cool to scale it,
it,
not scale it back from the sense of like the stunts, but like to scale it back to not having technology, the mask, cars, all that stuff would be pretty intriguing to me. Just kind of like savage. I don't know.
yeah, it'd be. I think that's naturally like the progression of it. Like something
Yeah,
has
yeah,
to break in
yeah,
order for us to find some like normalcy in living again. So I think that if
yeah,
any
yeah.
guys can pull that off to kind of speak to audiences in our
Hmm.
current our social climate, I think that would be genius to do.
Yeah.
I do think, to answer your question before, I do think that we are going to have a time jump, because if she already
Ooh,
told
okay.
Kittredge, like, she needs time to kind of adjust to IMF, she needs time to
Yeah.
um,
Integrate herself.
train, because she's
Yeah.
not trained,
She's not
right?
very green.
No.
Yeah.
So I think that's the best option, is a time jump.
Okay.
um,
Are we
and
talking months or years?
I'd say a couple of months.
Couple
I
months.
do
Okay.
months, not a year.
Yeah.
I think months wise, like Ethan and Benji are trying to figure this stuff out on their
Right.
own, like off the grid. Um, and then maybe like Luther has enough time to do whatever he has to do and come back as well. So I think months would be the easiest thing. If it's a
Yeah.
year, that would just
That
change
yeah,
all
it's
of
a
the
lot of off-screen development. Like, what has like the entity hasn't destroyed the world at this point, or if it has, like, oh, we just missed so much. So yeah, I think months
yeah.
works for me as well.
Yeah.
Final question before we get to box office. Any returning characters, not just from Paris and obviously CIA agents and everyone from this film, besides Elsa, R.I.P. But I don't know. One of my biggest things with part 3, Amanda, was like Maggie Q was like, bring her back. Is a
Good.
Maggie Q or Paula Pattinson? I know Jeremy Renner's recovering after his horrific incident,
Mm.
but that was in December. They were shooting. They didn't shoot this back to back, but maybe they got some. I don't like. Who do you think? We got Kitcher's gonna like. Do you think there's gonna be any returning characters from the old regime, old team that could appear in part 8? I keep saying
I
part 8,
would,
part 2, Mission Impossible 8.
yeah, I know it's like it's tough to like say it. I would low key love. This is not going to happen,
Yeah.
but I would love if Thandaway Newton came back.
Ooh, and it just
That's
to her
cool.
side. My man was hooking up with her too, and he's married in the third. Like, what happened?
You know what I mean? I think that would be really interesting. She won't come back
Eh,
because I don't know.
right,
I don't
right.
think she has the best memories of MI2, from
Yeah,
what I remember her saying. But I would
gotcha.
love like Maggie Q. Jeremy Renner's the obvious choice here
I
because
had
like
so much fun with him in that rewatching, man. I forgot that he was just so he was the one that was like, he was the audience. He's like, what are you doing? You're just doing all things off of luck. I love Brent. He was just
right.
such a fun character. I would love to see him back too.
And like I think people forget how talented he is because he
Yeah.
doesn't really have much. Now, I don't want to say he doesn't have much to do in like with Hawkeye as a character, but like if you watch him in like Born Legacy, you watch him in MI, you're like,
Yeah.
he's damn funny. Like his comedic timing is great, his banter is amazing, and he's a really good like action star. Technically, like they were gonna plan a whole other 3 movies with the Bourne trilogy.
There you
You know what I
go.
mean? So
Jeremy Renner was, like you mentioned, he is still as a star, right? I mean, of course, people a lot know him from Hawkeye, but yeah, you're so right, Amanda. They wanted to give him the torch for Mission or Born. Also, let me back. They wanted to give him Mission Impossible, if I'm not mistaken, because I think before Christopher McQuarrie rewrote Part 4, there was an idea for Ethan to be like the head of the MI department, like the leader, and then
yeah.
have Brent be the guy on the field. That was like a point at plot at point, but obviously they didn't do that, and I think that's smart. No disrespect to Jeremy Renner, but yeah, he is an action guy. I would love, and to take it back to his injury, he doesn't have to be in the field. He could just be kind of not like a Val Kilmer extent of him being in Mission Impossible
Mhm.
Maverick, but you can have Renner on the phone, shoot a scene of him on the phone or
I love
helping
it.
him out I don't know. I would love to see him. That's what I'm getting
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, I would honestly, like, I think he was such a fresh addition. Like, I know that Rebecca Ferguson came in, but, like, when
Yeah.
Renner came in too, that's
Mhm.
why I think Ghost Protocol is, like, so fun to watch too at the
Yeah.
same time, and then, like, Rogue Nation, they, like, came in at different times, and it was just so good.
I agree.
Yeah.
One more thing. If it's
Yeah.
not Ethan Hunt that's dying, potentially, hopefully not. Luther and Benji, are they on the chopping block?
No.
They're
I think
don't
people
touch.
will riot if either one of them when that happened in what was it? No, Rogue Nation? Ghost Protocol. When Benji had the bomb with Solomon Lane, Rogue Nation,
Rogue Nation. Yeah.
I was ready to fight. There's no way they're not expendable. I think that would literally break Ethan apart if anything were to happen
I
to
think they're
either
gonna
of
do
them.
it. I think Luther's gonna be the one too, because he's the OG. He's been there since the beginning, Amanda. He's doing his little side mission. And
That would
Gabriel, he might like, you took my key. I'm gonna take another one of your friends and finds Luther. I would hate it. I'm not gonna speak that into existence. Don't speak that in Ricky Bobby. Maybe not. But I think one of them will probably bite the dust. Potentially. We'll
low key,
see.
if they're gonna take one, they might as well take both. I'm
I'll
gonna
take
be
him out,
honest.
swipe him out, start from
Because like
scratch.
I can't choose. I don't
Hmm.
think they'll be able to choose, because
Well, I'll say, if I had a gun to my head, Amanda, I gotta
oh,
go Vin Rames, man, because he's been there since day one.
I
He's been
know, I
there, and he's
know.
the one that like he like you said, he builds. He's a hype man. He hypes up Ethan. Fallout. Do we cut the wire? Where is he? He's gonna do it. He's there. He's always believing in Ethan.
Oh,
But I just thought about it, Amanda. In
no.
was it Fallout? where Ethan saved Vin Raines. Now Luther has his chance to save Ethan. He's going to sacrifice himself and pay it forward.
There you go. You wrote it.
We'll
You wrote it now. You wrote it, and now it's gonna happen. And just
Did they bring Julia back? Is she going to come back?
You know what? Like, I also, side note, I never really liked that entire storyline.
Neither.
That's why I didn't like MI3. That's literally why I didn't like MI3.
Never buy into their romance. We just introduced. She's just there. They're married. They're happy. You know. I not nothing against what's her name? Michelle. Yeah, nothing against her. But I just never really bought into that romance and that love story. Just never really. It worked for me more. I think you even said so in your review of Fallout. It worked for me more in Fallout than it did in their entire thing in 2 or 3. And also it was a little, it was a nice little moment too in Ghost Protocol. But yeah, maybe they bring her back and her husband. They have kids now, and they're gonna. I don't know. We'll see.
Could you imagine? Oh my god, that'd be so funny.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. Last thing, Amanda, we're pre-recording this, and we'll wrap it up with this. Box office. I used to be a wizard at this game. I used to be like, oh, this movie's about to make this. But now I'm out of the game. It's like I thought Flash was going to be like 500, 600 million. Nope. Bombed. With that said, Amanda, the projections right now is like, I think 90 million was the last time I saw, which I think would be the highest of the franchise. And I think worldwide is at 270 to 300 for the opening weekend.
Fair.
What is your box office number for opening weekend domestically? And then what do you think it's going to be worldwide over this first weekend? And I guess just to add another wrinkle to the equation, once it's done with this theatrical run in 2.5 months, or if it's anything like Top Gun Maverick, maybe 3-4 months, how much will this make all together once it's all said and done? So opening weekend domestic, opening weekend worldwide, and all of it accumulating once it's done in the theaters.
Oh my god, I think opening weekend, like saying 90 is fair. Like I would do 80 to like 100 opening weekend, like as a range.
Yeah.
Because we also have to remember that he started it Monday, the screenings.
Right.
So I think it's the 12th. Technically, it opens tomorrow. And then
I think you're right. Yeah. Or is it Wednesday then? Okay. Yeah, tomorrow. Because tomorrow they're going to get
so it's fan event, pre-screening, then release. So he made that choice because of Oppenheimer, the whole BS with Oppenheimer and IMAX and all of that. So he has like an extra week to kind of get that on top of it. But again, it's that Maverick push, it's that Maverick.
The legs.
It's the legs with that. So I think, and then you said, you said domestically opening weekend, and then
80 to 90 or possibly 100 on the top end, and then worldwide for the opening weekend projections are like 270, 300. That sound about right to you, or maybe more for the opening weekend?
I think it's around that range. I think it's like I'd say like I'd range at 250 to 3, maybe like that.
Which,
I don't know.
By the way, guys, all these numbers are records for this franchise. Like, this franchise does well, especially the last one. But these are highs for the franchise. So they would love to get those numbers. Which I guess the last number for you, Amanda, is once it's all said and done and it's out of theaters. Knowing the power of Tom Cruise, this might be in theaters till September. To Christmas. To the next one comes out next year.
Do it.
The highest one right now, I think, is 791 with Fallout, followed by Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol, and I think 3 is after that. Is it in the realm of possibility that this gets to $1 billion, to possibly cross over $1 billion, or is it just too much competition with Barbie, Oppenheimer? Next month, we got Blue Beetle and Ninja Turtles, and obviously kids are going back to school. Is it $1 billion club? Because right now it will be the only one next to Mario that's going to cross $1 billion. We'll see what the Christmas season comes with Wonka and Aquaman
and them. Too. You know what? This is going to be controversial as hell. I'm biased with this franchise, and I love it so much. I don't see Barbie or Oppenheimer being competition for MI.
Ooh.
I know, and people are gonna get mad. The Nolan truthers. I'm not being annoying about this, but I'm looking at the projections. I'm looking at the marketing too,
Yeah.
because I talk to random people
Mhm.
and they have no idea about the whole Barbieheimer situation. They have no
Yeah,
idea about
the
Barbie. They have
April
no
Fool's
idea about
weekend.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know if it has legs to have that longevity to
Mhm.
hit a certain mark.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say it's going to hit 1 billion. Am I? I'm not going to say it's going to hit. I would
Not even close?
love
Not close? Or maybe
maybe like if Fallout did 790, you said, or
791 was Fallout,
yeah,
yeah. Let me just
it'll
double
hit.
check.
I'm going to say 700. I'm going to say
700.
a safe thing
I'm just
because
gonna pose it to you, Amanda. I would have never in a million years would have suspected Mission or Top Gun to cross, honestly,
yeah,
600. I thought like, and that's more than enough than it would have made because it would have tripled the original box office. But
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, Amanda, Top Gun made like 1.3 billion or maybe 1.4, which is just crazy. And you set it up top with the new generation that's following him. Who's to say that those kids 1.4? Oh my, it almost made 1.5. Top Gun. What if those kids come? Well, not even just kids, but just people that are just in a Tom Cruise hive. We just
yeah.
saw them last summer. Get back into the theaters this summer. Is that a push to get into the billion?
I
I
hope
don't
so.
know.
I
What's your
hope
final number? What's the final number that your gut's telling you for this
if
film?
I'm playing it safe, it would be 700 mil. It would be 700 mil, 7 to 800. Let's ballpark it as a
700.
safe bet. If I'm soaring
Shooting
through the
stars
sky like
like
he
like
did,
you did.
I'd hit that billion in like 2 seconds. Like I really do think that this thing has legs. It has the longevity like Maverick.
Yeah,
Um, and people look at Rotten Tomatoes on top of it when they're
they
trying to
do.
watch a movie.
Especially in today's climate. Like, is it worth my money? Is it worth the time?
Exactly, because I'm
Yeah.
spending $23 for IMAX. This thing
Yeah.
better be damn
Better
good,
be
you know?
right.
So, yeah, that's where I'm
So
at.
to double to fact check myself, yes, Mission Impossible Fallout 791. The next one was actually Ghost Protocol. The fourth one was the second highest. That made 694, followed by Rogue Nation, which made 690 or 682. So obviously the franchise has gotten like the returns have been good. But to jump from 791 to a billion is a pretty big jump. From when Fallout came out to the 300 million. That's a lot to ask for, especially knowing that films aren't in theaters as long. I don't think Paramount would cut the legs off and be like, oh, it's going to be on Paramount Plus in 2 months. Like, no, Tom Cruise is going to shut that down real quick. Something in my gut, man, is telling me that I think it could maybe do that billion. Maybe. Because again, the Top Gun fans, Tom Cruise fans,
Yeah,
lackluster summer so far. And I
true.
think you're right on at least Oppenheimer. I think Oppenheimer's going to do good, but I don't think it's going to do like Dunkirk, which made like so much more money than I ever. Like I think Dunkirk
Yeah,
made almost like 700 million for a war film of that.
Harry
But it's
Styles.
almost just 3 hours. I think is Dunkirk or the new one,
It
Oppenheimer.
is. Yeah,
I think Barbie's going to do really well, but I think
yeah.
it's gonna kind of wear off after a certain point.
Me too.
I'm gonna throw my number out there, Amanda. I'm gonna put the pressure on myself. I think it could do a billion, like right at the cusp of a billion. And then also just to answer my own question, I think it's gonna do like 100. I wouldn't be surprised to do like 120 opening weekend domestically,
Ooh,
315 worldwide.
I
And
like
then my final number is I think it can do a billion on the high end and on the low end,
that. Yeah,
785.
I can see that. I
Yeah.
like that sort of thing.
And
I
we'll
can
come
definitely.
back in a couple months and it'll be like completely off and it'll be like the worst box office predict it made 4
No.
million at the box office and
I know. I
200
know.
million. No, it won't bomb. I think it's a fair shot. It's going to like do good numbers this weekend.
Oh, definitely.
Amanda, it is always so much fun. And by the way, side note, this was our fourth time recording this. My computer was acting crazy. The entity was trying to take me down. Thank you so much for your patience, for sticking around to get this done. Amanda, where can people find you? We're pre-recording this on a Tuesday. What's next on your channel?
Yeah.
And all that good stuff. Stage is yours.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I love coming on here, Elliot. It's like my favorite thing. I love doing our breakdowns, and it's always fun. So it's just an honor to always be on your channel and do this with you. But yeah, coming up, I have, I'm going to probably do my MI ranking. I think it's about time that I can do it. I have my Secret Invasion episode 4. Yeah, episode 4 dropping tomorrow after I watch it. And then that's all I have because I'm going on vacation on the 20th. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break. But when I come back, I'll probably be doing Barbie and Oppenheimer. So that'll be on the channel. But you guys can always follow me over at AMX Indie Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Right now, if you don't have time to watch the other Mission Impossible films, come on over to Canon Cinema on YouTube. I have complete breakdowns from 1 to 6 and my review for 7. So yeah, come on over.
People also, Amanda, can they find you, speaking of technology, can they find you on Threads? Are you on Threads as well?
Oh, hells yes, I'm on Threads. I jump ship so fast on Threads. We love it.
Bye, Twitter. Yeah. Not gonna miss you. Amanda, again, thank you for being here. And I'm going to talk to you off screen before we end out. If you're available, I have a mission that I might want to tag along that I'll tell you about here. But check out Amanda. Again, her reviews for 1 through 6, fantastic. Her review for 7's on her channel now. Check it out. Watch it 20,000 times because they're that great. Links of Amanda's content can be found in the description of this video. Thank you all for watching. If you watched it from the beginning all the way to the end, thank you. Or if you're just popping in, watching the back end, wherever the case may be, really appreciate it. Like, share, leave your thoughts in the comments. And Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1 might be the king of the summer. We'll see. We'll revisit our predictions in a couple months, Amanda. But for myself and Amanda, thank you all for accepting this mission and joining us and talking about this film. We'll catch you all on the next video.